As Ukrainian forces prepare to launch a massive new counteroffensive, they now have a deadly new weapon in their arsenal. CNN exclusively first reported that Britain has delivered to Ukraine its advanced Storm Shadow cruise missiles, the kind of long-range capability Kyiv has long been pleading for.
The donation of these weapon systems gives Ukraine the best chance to defend themselves against Russia's continued brutality.
The Storm Shadow gives Ukrainian forces the ability to strike deep behind Russian lines. A Western official called it a proportionate response to Russia's targeting of civilian infrastructure. However, Ukrainian forces have pledged to fire the missiles only inside Ukrainian sovereign territory, not to attack Russia itself. While the U.S. has so far refused to provide Ukraine with long-range missiles, such as the Attackms, for fear of sparking Russian retaliation, the U.K. has been more forward-leaning with its weapon supplies. In recent months, the U.K. provided modern Western Challenger 2 tanks, before the U.S. decided to supply its own Abrams tanks. The Storm Shadow is a cruise missile, typically launched from the air with stealth capabilities. It has a range in excess of 155 miles, 3 times the range of U.S.-provided missiles.
The Storm Shadow's capabilities are really complementary to what the Ukrainians are planning to do with their spring offensive. It's able to use video imagery to target actual areas that they're going after.
Still, the U.S. Secretary of State has said that Ukraine already has what it needs to be successful.
My own estimation is that they have in place, across all of those dimensions, what they need to continue to be successful in regaining territory that was seized by force by Russia over the last 14 months.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, on the other hand, has said his country is not quite ready, saying he is still waiting for aid already promised.
We're expecting armoured vehicles. They arrive in batches. We can advance with what we've got, and I think we can be successful. But we will lose a lot of people. I think that is unacceptable. We need to wait.
UK officials have said repeatedly that they consider Crimea Ukrainian sovereign territory as well, which would put some of Russia's most prized military possessions, including its Black Sea fleet, at potential risk from this new and highly capable weapons system. Jim Sciutto, CNN, Washington. The announcement of what a senior U.S. military official told me is a major game changer when it comes to weapons for Ukraine in the war with Russia. The UK confirmed it has delivered these to Ukraine, long-range Storm Shadow missiles, as they're known. It's a cruise missile, usually air-launched, and it has a range triple that of the missiles that Ukraine currently has as supplied by the U.S. I'm joined now by Cedric Layton. Let's talk a little bit about what new capability this gives. So the current weapons range for Ukrainian forces as supplied by the U.S., 49 miles. That's deliberate. We'll talk about that in a moment. The newest one, the Storm Shadow here, a range gets you up to about 155 miles. What's the difference that makes for Ukrainian forces?
So the difference that makes, Jim, is really quite profound because it's about triple the distance of the weapons that Ukraine currently has. This is the export version of the Storm Shadow.
Right.
The version that France and Britain use actually has a double this range as well. So what you're talking about is a cruise missile with stealth capabilities, and it also has nap of the earth navigation capability. That means that it flies about 150, 130 feet above the ground, or a little less than that. So this is a very important missile from that standpoint.
And that can allow them to fly under Russian missile defenses. I've seen these flying in Ukraine, and by the way, it's scary to see one of them because they don't fly that fast. You could actually see them as they move around, and it's anyway, it's threatening if you see one coming your way. Let's look at the Ukraine map because distance is key here. Now, in my reporting, the agreement between the UK and Ukraine to get these weapons, which they've been begging for a long time from the U.S. and its allies, is that they will only fire inside Ukrainian sovereign territory, some of which is, of course, occupied by Russia, not fire into Russia. So let's talk about the range here, because this has a range, 150 miles. Let's talk about, say, the distance between, say, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson here, roughly similar to that distance. So you could fire, for instance, from here into Crimea.
That's right.
That's a problem for Russia.
And the key thing is, Jim, that Crimea is recognized by the UK as being sovereign Ukrainian territory. And as a result of that, that makes perfect sense then for a weapon to be supplied that has this range.
That's important because it's not just here. And by the way, easy range with this to fire, for instance, into Donetsk, Luhansk, the eastern provinces, currently as well, the red areas here occupied by Russian forces. The problem, of course, and I'm going to change the color again just so it's easier for people to see, is that with this range, you could conceivably fire across the border into Russia. And that's what has concerned U.S. officials. I should note again, though, Ukrainians have said they will not. Why does that concern U.S. officials?
So what they want to do is they want to make sure that no Russian territory is in range of any Ukrainian weapon system. And the reason they are doing that is because, for example, right about here is Belgorod. And that is an area that has nuclear weapons. It also has a Russian military base. And it's so close to the Ukrainian border that it would be within easy range, even of the weapon systems that Ukraine currently has. So they want to make sure that the Ukrainians live up to this promise so that they don't elevate the tensions and bring the Russians into a higher level of fighting.
We know, for instance, that Ukrainians have been asking for this. This is a U.S. long-range missile system known as the Attackmz, based on its acronym there. 185 miles, a little bit longer. They've wanted this. Instead, they're getting the Storm Shadow. Major difference there for Ukrainian forces?
So there's some difference. This actually has a slightly longer range than what the Storm Shadow provides, but the big difference actually is that the Storm Shadow has some capabilities that the Attackmz does not have.
Interesting.
And those capabilities include a GPS, map of the Earth navigation capability, and the reason for that, it actually allows for more efficient use of firepower and more effective targeting.
Interesting. So a little less range, more capability. And again, before we go, just noting, Ukrainian forces, they're preparing for a counteroffensive right now. And this new weapon system, this new missile system, is going to give them capabilities they didn't have before. Cedric Layton, thanks so much as always. Brianna.